All right, the most important thing when it comes to your new pool is your pool chemistry. You are going to get a tailored test kit. It's going to have all your ways to test chlorine, pH, alkalinity, and calcium. Also CYA or cyanuric acid. So how you're going to test for this, I'm going to go over how you actually test and use your test kit. Okay, so this is your main test kit. What you're going to do is you're going to fill these up with water. You have your chlorine on your smaller tube here is for your chlorine. Your bigger tube here is for your pH, your alkalinity, and your calcium. Okay, so the first thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to read the chlorine testing instructions. Okay, so you want to follow all the yellow marks in the chlorine. So the first instruction, it says fill the small tube to the 9mm mark with sample water. Number 2 is add 5 drops of R1 and 5 drops of R2, cap and invert to mix. So what that's saying is we're going to put sample water into this 9mm mark here on the side of the vial. So dip it down. Usually about 18 inches is probably the best to get under the water. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to shake it out until that water gets right on that 9mm mark, okay? So then it says 5 drops of R1, which they're all labeled on here, R1. So what I'm going to do is do 5 drops, and I'm going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, okay? That's the first step. Second step is add 5 drops of R2. So the second one in there is R2. It's labeled R2. Same thing. Count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see how the color of the water is starting to change pink. Okay. So what you're going to do, take your cap. You can use your cap or your hand, but let's just use the cap for now. And you're going to invert it. Okay. And then now you hold it up to the sun, and you match the color of pink with the sun. So as you can see, it's at a high level of chlorine, so we can actually reduce the chlorine level of this. This is at a 10 part per million chlorine. This is going to be in between 10 and 20 parts per million of chlorine. Okay, so we know we have chlorine in this pool, which is good. So now we can adjust it. We can actually turn the chlorinator down a little bit, because what we want is around 3 parts per million, 2 to 3, even as low as 1 parts per million on your chlorine. Okay, so we're going to dump that out. We're going to rinse the test kit out, and then we're going to move on to pH. Okay, you're going to test chlorine and pH weekly. Okay, so the next section in the test kit is pH. So you're going to start here. You're going to read instructions 1 through 3. The first one, it says fill large tube to 44mm mark with sample water. So what we're going to do there, large tube, the 44mm mark has a 44 written on the side, so it's going to be filled all the way up, 18 inches below. Gotta get some more water. All right, so we're going to fill the tube up to the 4mm mark. Number 2 on the red pH test says add 5 drops of R4. 5 drops of R4. So what we're going to do, I'm going to add them to the back here so you can see it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay? And then what we're going to do is invert that as well to mix the color. So we're going to invert that, and you see how much that color changes. We're going to hold it up to the sky, and we're going to match the pH color chart on the side here. So right now it's in between, to me, a 7.4 and a 7.2. So that's going to tell us we're at 7.3 on our pH scale. Okay? You want your pH somewhere between 7.2, 7.6, so we're right in line with pH. If the pH was higher, that had more of a pink, what we would do would then move on to the acid demand test. So the acid demand test says use treated sample, add R5 drops after each drop, count until you reach the desired pH color. So what that means is you take the R5 and you use this sample water. You don't pour it out. And you add drops, and you'll see the color change as you add drops to this. See how that starts turning more yellow? When you have a high pH, it's going to be very pink, and you count the number of drops that you use, okay? So once this gets to the 7.4 that you wanted, or the 7.6, you take your number of drops, and then you look up how many drops in the book. So your test kit comes with a book. In the back, there's tables. So you're going to flip to the pH section, which most of the time you're going to use muriatic acid to lower pH. Okay. So in the back, this book says to decrease pH using muriatic acid. So this is a 10 to 12,000 gallon pool. I'd probably do all my chemicals off of 10,000 gallons. So let's just say we added 4 drops to get to the desired pH. If we had a high pH of like 8.0, we used 4 drops. The color of this water then matched the 7.4 on the color chart. We come over here and it says 4 drops, 10,000 gallons. We need to add 1.43 quarts of muriatic acid to this pool. So after you're done with testing, what you're going to do, measure out 1 3/4 of a cup of muriatic acid and pour it around the pool. Okay? So now that we tested pH, we're going to move on to alkalinity. Alkalinity and pH are on the same scale. You're going to use muriatic acid to lower your pH and lower your alkalinity. Okay? So on the test kit here, we're going to move on to the green. It says fill the large tube, the 25 milliliter mark, with sample water. So unlike the pH, we're only going to fill this large tube half. So we're going to shake it out. And we're going to fill it to the halfway up is the 25 milliliter mark. Okay? So on the pH, or on the alkalinity test, it says you're going to add 2 drops of R7. Okay? So I'm going to count out 1, 2. Then add 5 drops of R8. Swirl and mix sample, it says. So we're going to kind of swirl it as we drop it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Then it says add R9 dropwise, swirling and counting after each drop until color changes from green to red. Number 5, multiply drops in step 4 by 10 to record the parts per million of total alkalinity as calcium carbonate. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to start off with green water. We're going to add drops one by one, counting them until we get the color change to pink. So this is how I do it. I kind of shake it with my left hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I'll probably go one more, 6, to where you get a solid pink color. Okay, this is a little low on the alkalinity, so what we're going to have to do is add alkalinity to or add a chemical to increase the alkalinity. Everything that you need to know is in this book on what to add, how much to add. So go to the back of the table, and then we're going to find increase alkalinity. Okay, it says to increase alkalinity using baking soda. So that's what I normally use to raise alkalinity. Also with pH is baking soda or sodium bicarbonate. So 10,000 gallons. We were at a 60 parts per million. It needs to be somewhere between 80 and 100. Let's say we wanted to get it up to 100, so that would be 40 parts per million, right? So for 40 parts per million at a 10,000 gallon, we need to add 7 pounds of sodium bicarbonate or baking soda. Okay, so as of now, 1.43 quarts of muriatic acid and some baking soda to up the pH or up the alkalinity. Okay, the next test is going to be your calcium hardness. Okay, so this is going to measure the total amount of calcium inside the pool, and it's going to say fill large tube to the 25 milliliter mark. So we're going back to halfway on the 25 milliliter mark. All right. Then it says add 5 drops of R1. So we're going to, or correction, add 20 drops of R1 and swirl and mix. So we're going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Okay, so we got the 20s, and then where it says add 5 drops of R11 to the water. So what we're going to do, same thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we're going to kind of swirl that around. Okay? See how it's sticking at the bottom? We're going to swirl it around, and it's actually going to turn pink. The next, add our 12 drops, swirling and counting at the same time until the color changes from red to blue. So it's actually a pink color, if you can see that in the video. And what we're going to do is add drops, just like we did with the calcium or the alkalinity, and we're going to count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Now I can start seeing it kind of turn blue right now. So 21, it's fully blue. There's no pink left in there. Okay, so we're going to times that by 10. That's going to give us 210 parts per million. We need to add a little bit of calcium to this pool because you want the calcium somewhere around 250 to 300. But once again, this book that you need to go over and read is going to tell you what all your chemical levels need to be. Okay, so that's the calcium test. Drop it out, dump it out. All right. The next test is going to be your CYA. This is going to be the last test that's in this test kit, okay? So, CYA is basically sunscreen for the chlorine, okay? It's a stabilizer that stabilizes the water. If you don't have CYA or stabilizer in your pool, when you put chlorine in here, the sun is going to burn it up quick, and you're not going to be able to have chlorine or keep chlorine in your pool, even though you just added it the day before, okay? So stabilizer is very important. If you have a chlorinator that has the tabs, those tabs have CYA built into them. If you don't have a chlorinator, most of the time you're going to have to add CYA manually or keep, granule CYA to make sure your pool stays proper parts per million on the CYA, okay? So the test to this is going to be in white, and it says fill bottle 9191 to 7 milliliter mark, okay? So in your test kit, you're going to have a bottle which just says part 9191 right here, okay? What we're going to do is we're going to fill this with pool water to 7. Got a little bit too much in there, so just kind of shake it out little bit by little bit. Maybe a little bit more. Okay, we're right on that 7 mark now. Then it says adding R13, fill the cap to the 14 mark. So basically you take the R13, which is on the top row, and you're going to add this chemical until you get to the 14 meter line. Can you see that on the video? Yeah, okay. So then it says put the cap on and mix for 30 seconds. All right, so that's 30 seconds right there. What you're going to do is pour this into the little, as you can see, that black dot on the bottom of that cylinder there. Okay, you're going to fill this up until the water becomes cloudy to where you can't see that dot anymore. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to look over it, stand over it, and I'm going to put water into this thing until I cannot see the bottom of it anymore. Okay, then you come over to the side here and you see the CYA chart here. So I only have water to here, so I'm at the 80 parts per million mark. So this pool right now has 80 parts per million CYA. That's right on the level of being, 50 is kind of where you want to be. It's kind of on the level to being too high. So to lower CYA, we need to drain a little bit of the water in the pool. So I would suggest probably 3 or 4 inches of this water, draining it, and then test the CYA next week. To add CYA, you're going to have CYA granules, CYA increaser. You're going to add that to the pool, the skimmers of the pool, to increase the CYA. But you want to stay somewhere around that 50 parts per million, okay? So that is all the tests that come in your Taylor test kit. So what you're going to do is you're going to test chlorine and pH weekly, and then you need to test the rest, alkalinity, calcium, CYA, monthly, okay? So the more you test your water, the better. You're never can have perfect chemistry, but the more you test, the better your chemistry is going to be. What that does for your pool, it keeps your plaster in better condition, calcium build up on your tile line. It produces better water chemistry for the overall well-being of the swimming pool. So the most important thing, I can't stress it enough, is water chemistry, okay? So this book has everything that you need to know about water chemistry. You really need to read this, because if you're going to take care of the pool yourself, you really need to know what you're putting in your pool, because it can be detrimental to the interior finish, the tile, the materials that you have, if you don't keep your water chemistry right. Not enough chlorine is going to create algae. You're going to start seeing algae grow on your pool. Too much calcium, not enough calcium, is going to create calcium lines on your waterline tile. So a little bit about water is it's always going to be balancing itself out. So if you don't have enough chlorine, it's going to pull chlorine or calcium, different things from the interior, from the finishes. So you really need to check your chemicals at least once a week. I do mine probably twice a week, and I test everything, because once you get used to it, it takes about 5 minutes to test for it. So they also make some strips that you can just dip in, and then they're automatically gonna, it's gonna show you, it's kind of like a color chart that reads out everything instantly. I don't feel they're good and they're quick, so I would recommend doing that weekly, getting those test strips and doing that every week so you can see other things. But when you're going to add chemicals, I would use the drops. They're going to be a lot more precise on what you need to order for adding chemicals and getting it to the right parts per million, because those test strips aren't going to tell you how much you need to add to go up in alkalinity or pH or chlorine. So this is the test strip that you're going to have. So remember, step-by-step instructions on what to follow. Start with your chlorine, pH, alkalinity, calcium, and then white's your CYA. And that's it when you for testing for all your pool chemicals.